Hey, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Chat with Ryan Frank. Thank you for being here. If you're watching this today on Facebook, which a lot of you are catching this on Facebook, or the podcast, YouTube, thank you for tuning in. We are joined by Vladimir Prokhnevskiy. How did I do on that?
You did great, better than what I can say. I think
Man,
I need to learn. I need to take lessons from you.
I guess. Vladimir, what now? How do you get a name like Prokhnevskiy? You
It's
have
a
to be
comp.
born somewhere special for that.
I know, right? I feel sorry for my wife. She had to inherit that last
Oh,
name.
my word.
But I gave my kids really simple names, Ashton and Elliot. I figured they already have a complicated last name, so I'll simplify the process.
So we'll make it as easy as we can
Right.
for them on their first names. Yes. Thank you for being with us, Vladimir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, children's industry community, thanks for tuning in. We're in for a treat today. We're going to hear Vladimir's story. It's a really inspiring story. So many of you in your families and in your church, you are packing shoe boxes for to partner with the ministry of Operation Christmas Child, Samaritan's Purse. And I want you to hear a story today about someone who was impacted by one of those shoe boxes. And I want to just encourage you and remind you today that what you are doing with Operation Christmas Child is making a difference. And if you aren't packing shoe boxes, you really need to be, because it's making a big, big difference. So Vladimir, talk to us about your childhood. I know a little bit because I've read up on you. I've studied up. But tell everybody about what it was like growing up as a kid.
Right. So I come from Kiev, Ukraine. I come from a family of 9 children. And my father was an underground minister in Kiev, Ukraine. He
Really?
risked his life preaching the gospel on the streets of Kiev at the time when it wasn't popular or allowed. And because my father was a believer living in a communist country, he was hindered from advancing our society. You know, everything was owned by the state. He couldn't just open his own business. So he had to go with the flow. And every time he was captured and written up, it greatly affected his space. So it got to the point to where we had to take turns to go outside to play because we didn't have enough shoes for everybody.
Really?
We also had to share toothbrushes. That was a humbling experience. I would brush my teeth, give my toothbrush to my mom, and she would wash it with hot water and soap, and then she would pass it on to somebody else. And we didn't have access to a lot of toys, especially new toys, but it didn't stop us from being creative. We would find Coca-Cola caps. This is actually pretty cool what we did. And we would flip them, drill a little hole through the middle, find a little match to put through and some strings, and we made yo-yos out of Coca-Cola caps. Now, we didn't stop there. We also take the little ring that was, the old school Coca-Cola bottles. If you take the cap off, there's another plastic ring that's attached to the cap. And if you remove that ring and invert it, it had little plastic teeth. And so we would slide them on the ends of Coca-Cola caps. And so our yo-yos had spikes. And so it would cut through paper, through grass. It's pretty cool. And we were like 7 years old making these things. And we would also play with our shoes, pretending they were cars. Some days there were airplanes, boats. We used our imagination. And we also, there's another thing we did was pretty cool. We would find a piece of paper and we'd draw roads on a piece of paper. And on a separate piece of paper, we would draw cars that were proportional to the roads, and we would cut them out, and then we would drive on top of those roads. It was like Google Map bird's eye view. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And as for food, we pretty much grew up on rice and potatoes, which I often jokingly say that we were vegetarians before it was even cool. And we grew up in a tiny 3-bedroom apartment with barely any heating, cooling. We didn't have a washer and a dryer, so my mom, she had to do all the laundry by hand. And because of the amount of laundry that mom had to do, her skin would often crack and bleed. And mom, she's just amazing. She would stay up all night. Just like us, she was very resourceful. She would make socks and underwear for us out of just old clothes that had holes in them. So very creative. But so in the middle of that, that's when we were invited to come to a Christmas celebration. So we were poor on the inside and persecuted on the outside, but we received this invitation to come to a Christmas celebration. We were told we'd get a gift. And I was so excited because I never had a gift before. It was my first Christmas gift.
Really?
And just to get to that place, Ryan, we had to hop on the bus and then on the tram in the middle of cold Ukrainian winter. And we were lightly dressed because we couldn't afford winter clothes. And so we were kind of cold, but it didn't matter because I was so excited to finally get there. And when I pulled up to this place, what was so cool is that I was walking in at the same time with a girl that I recognized from my class, but I was very surprised to see this girl there because I knew that this girl was not a believer. And for some reason, I assumed that this place was only for Christians. But to my surprise, this place was filled with all kinds of people from all walks of life. And when we walked into this place, it's like we transitioned from this black and white Ukrainian winter to a colorful room of joy and laughter. There was so much happy music, beautiful, welcoming smiles.
Mm.
But most importantly, though, they presented the gospel to us in so many different and unique ways through singing, dancing, cartoons, movies, animations, flannel boards. It's like the gospel came alive. And,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
at the very end, that's when we received the beautiful and colorful shoe boxes. And I can go in great detail talking about that. If you want me to continue, I'd love to.
So how old were you? You're maybe 5, 6, or are you a little older than
Oh,
that?
I was 9 years old when I received a shoebox.
9. Okay. And it's funny. Yeah. So tell us about this shoebox. So you literally, you're 9 years old and you literally don't know that you've ever received a gift, Christmas
No,
gift before
not
that.
not like that. Not anything that special and that huge. I mean, when I received my shoebox, it was one of those old school actual shoe boxes. And it
Yeah.
was wrapped in the Christmas wrapping, and there was so much color and personality just to the box itself. Like I just remember thinking, I don't want to ruin this box. It's a gift in itself. And when I opened the box, that's when I was just like blown away from everything in the box. Everything was new. To this day, when I hear the sound of wrapping paper, it just brings me back. Like when you go through toys aisle and you play with the wrapping paper, like some new
Yeah.
toys, it immediately takes me back to that shoebox because it was that special. And everything had such a certain smell to it. Just a lot of colors, and everything's new and it's all jumping at you. There's a lot to process. But I had my own yo-yo. I didn't have to make yo-yos out of Coca-Cola caps anymore. And my yo-yo was like the best yo-yo in the world. It was so colorful, so huge. And I also had my own toothbrush. I didn't have to share a toothbrush with anybody anymore. And my toothbrush was like a rock star toothbrush. It had so much personality, so much color to it.
That's
No,
awesome.
no one in my city had anything like it.
Yep.
I also had these Hot Wheel cars that were again so colorful. And growing up, I had to play with my shoes. So for me, it was very special because now I didn't have to play with my shoes pretending they were cars.
Mhm.
And everybody always, well, I also had school supplies, and that's something that we didn't have enough of. And oftentimes I went to school without school supplies, and my teacher, she did not like that at all, and I was too embarrassed to tell her that we couldn't afford it. So instead I told her that I forgot at home. I forgot my school supplies at home, and she would ridicule me in front of the whole class. Me and my twin brother, she would make us get up, and we would have to walk around and ask for a pen and paper. But now I had my own school supplies, and my school supplies were from another country. They were so special, so colorful.
Mhm.
No one had anything like that.
Mhm.
And I also had this bar of soap, which was like the whitest white I've ever seen. So squeaky clean, so slick, so smooth. It smelled so good. It had like a print of the dove on top. It sanctified my whole box. I call it my Holy Spirit in a box
Your
because it
Holy
was so
Spirit in a
special.
box.
And again, to this day, when I walk through like the detergent aisle, it takes me back to my box because his whole box smelled like that soap.
Yeah.
But Ryan, everybody always wants to know, like, what's the one thing out of the shoebox that you enjoy most? And for a lot of people, it's different things. Like, for example, for my sister Nadia, she also received a shoebox, and for her, it was a Barbie. And in our neighborhood, there was only one girl that had a Barbie, and she was not allowed to take this Barbie outside because it was like a luxury item. And
Yeah.
her mom was afraid that it would get stolen or lost. And so what this girl did was pretty cool. She would get on the balcony and she would show this Barbie to all the little girls in the neighborhood. But it was like a sad scene from Romeo and Juliet. They're all just looking up, and it's just this little Barbie. And so when my sister received her Barbie, she made sure to arrange sleepovers for all the little girls in the neighborhood.
That's crazy.
So to this day, when we moved in 2000, we gave this Barbie to somebody else. And so 20 years later, this Barbie, she went back or she called the people and she tried to figure out where the Barbie went. And so come to find out that family gave it to another family.
Really?
And that family gave it to another family. So
Man,
20
that's
years
crazy.
later, this Barbie is still blessing somebody somewhere. So your gifts go further than you think, and to bless more people than you think. And so all that to say that my favorite item was dental floss. And the reason why it was so memorable for me is because I looked at thinking it was candy, and I remember judging you guys just a little bit. I remember thinking, what kind of crazy candy is this? Like, it was minty. I remember thinking, well, it's not terrible. It has a decent texture to it. And
So whose idea was it that we're going to pack a shoebox full of fun stuff for kids and we're going to include dental floss?
right, but
Right?
it was the most memorable thing in the box. I mean, I thought it was some unique American candy, and the guy, there's a guy who came over trying to explain to me in his broken Russian. He was observing me the whole time. And he kind of went like this to tell me that this is not what you think it is. And what I got out of it was that I thought it was some kind of like toothbrush substitute, which confused me even more. I was fine with it being some random American candy. But anyway, so when you pack this year, make sure to throw one of these things in too.
Oh, kids will love it.
Just to confuse a child or two. It's good for him, builds character.
So, Vladimir, how do you go from being a kid in this big family, you receive a shoebox, to now you are speaking on behalf of Operation Christmas Child, encouraging people in what they're doing and why they're doing it? What connected you with Operation Christmas Child here in the U.S.?
Yeah, so I moved to the United States in 2000. When I received those shoe boxes, it left a mark on my heart. It's why would somebody pack a shoebox with no strings attached? The only thing that had strings was the identifiers,
Yeah.
right? But with no strings attached, unconditionally, why would a stranger spend money, time, give me a gift and not expect anything in return? They'd probably never even meet me. And so for years, that kind of like bogged me in a way. Like, why would people do that? And so when I moved to the United States, I drove by few churches where I saw the logos of Operation Christmas Child, and I thought, oh, it's that time of the year. They're probably getting shoe boxes. Like, I thought Americans are receiving shoe boxes. It's kind of like, I thought it was like a Boy Scouts in America, where you become Eagle Scout, and so I thought you get a shoe box and a Bible. Like, oh, I got that too in my country. And so years later, I applied for a job at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association as a web designer and developer, and they flew me in for an interview. And if you know anything about Billy Graham Evangelist Association, you meet everybody in the room. I mean, they take you through all. It's very intimidating.
Yes.
But during one of the interviews, I happened to mention that I received a shoebox, and somehow I knew that it was connected with Billy Graham. I just now understand that Samaritan's Purse is a sister organization of Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. And but I didn't know it back then. I just knew that it had some kind of connection, and so I just happened to mention it, and they were like, "You received a shoebox?" I'm like, "Yeah, I received a shoebox." So, needless to say, I got the job. I certainly hope shoebox is not why I got the job, but if it did help me, then it's a gift that keeps on giving, right?
Yeah. So you have the opportunity to speak online like this, and I assume prior to COVID, you would speak in groups at times and just share your story.
Yes, in the last 4 years, I've had an opportunity to speak at all kinds of churches, and it's what I love most about it is that I get to meet volunteers to pack these shoe boxes. Because for me, remember that question that I had when I received a shoebox, like, why would somebody take their time and money to do something so unconditional? It doesn't make any sense, because in my country, when somebody gives you a gift, they expect something in return. It's always conditional. Why would somebody do that? And so in the last 4 years, my mission was to meet as many volunteers as possible, people that pack shoeboxes. So the other side of the shoebox, and hear their stories. And it's just, it was beautiful to hear the stories, how people got connected with this ministry, and how generous they are with their time and their money. And that's what moves my heart. Generosity is contagious. I always say, you want to show love to my kids, or to me, show love to my kids, because that's how you get to my heart, through my kids.
That's right.
And that's exactly what happens. And not only that, Ryan, but kids also get to hear the gospel, because that's without the gospel, it'll just be a gift, but it comes with the gospel. And there's even more to that. Kids get to go through a 12-lesson discipleship program where they learn. So it's discipleship, multiplication, and evangelism, all three in one. And it's huge. And if you think about it, children are the next generation. And what an amazing ministry that goes after the future.
Yeah, and that's something, Vladimir, that Beth and I went on a trip with Operation Christmas Child earlier this year to Peru, South America, to see kids get their gifts, which was a really, Andrew Hine, our friend, was on that trip with us. It was so neat to see these kids receive their gifts and open them. But I think one thing that Beth and I didn't realize was what a tool this is for pastors to really do outreach to their community. And while that gospel is given with that shoebox very clearly, as you said, Vladimir, I didn't realize that it's followed up with this whole discipleship study and program for these kids, where they are coming back to the church and engaged in a discipleship program. It's really a great tool. And it's neat. It's neat what the Lord does with that one shoebox.
It has a huge ripple effect beyond the shoebox, and because of these shoeboxes, thousands of churches have been planted. I'm just one of 178 million children that received the shoebox since 1993, and we go to over 160 countries and territories, and the impact is amazing. One shoebox, if you think about it, probably touches 7 people on average. because
That's
because one person shares the gospel with 7 of their friends, and it has a ripple effect like you wouldn't believe. And that's why I'm so on fire about this, because once I understood and zoomed out to see the whole picture, because I went to a Connect conference with Operation Christmas Child that very first year that I signed up for it, and I sat through the presentation, how they go to the most unreached parts of the world, the darkest parts of the world, how intentional it is. Like you said, it's the tool for the gospel. And once I zoomed out, got to see the picture, like, wow, this isn't just about gifts for the children, which is awesome, but they get more than just a gift. They get a physical gift and a spiritual, eternity.
That's it.
And that's awesome, because they get to have a physical and eternal. And to me, once I connected the dots and got to see the whole picture, I was just like, you know what, send me anywhere, I'll share my story. If me sharing my story will encourage people to pack more shoe boxes, which in turn will have more gospel opportunities, then sign me up.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's about. Vladimir, wrap us up. Would you just share a word of encouragement to the children's pastors, youth pastors that are watching, listening to this today or sometime later this week? What do you want to say to them? Just one closing word of encouragement as we wrap up.
By the way, my parents are both still alive, but my mom, she did something powerful, something beautiful when because she was heavily criticized for having such a large family. Mm-hmm. And they would say that her kids, they would complain. They would say things like, what are you doing raising such a large family? They'll probably grow up and be criminals. You can't provide for them. And my mom, what she did was powerful. She would take her hands and she would put her hands on her belly with each pregnancy on the womb, and she would speak life over us. She would calendar what was spoken over us. Mm-hmm. And now when I pray over these shoe boxes, I do the same thing. I literally pick up my shoe box, put it in my belly, and I pray over these shoe boxes, because these are not just shoe boxes. These are children. They get to experience the shoebox, but at the same time, like we were talking earlier, get to hear the gospel. It's like a box full of love. And when you show love to people, you show God to people. When people experience love, they experience God. And once you experience the God's unconditional love, you will now walk away unchanged. And that's what it's all about. If I had to narrow it down to just one thing, it's you showing love to people. And God is love, God is light. These boxes, they're like light. They go to the most darkest parts of the world. And what happens to darkness when light comes in? All the darkness has to go. You can't turn darkness on light. It just doesn't work that way. Yep. And hopefully that's a great visual for everyone who's on the fence. But I think pack as many boxes as you can. But most importantly, pray over these boxes, because prayer is what seals the deal. It's what carries these boxes. And leave it up to God for delivering this box to the right person, and you'll bless them.
That's right. Vladimir, thank you. The website, SamaritansPurse.org, SamaritansPurse.org. Pack a shoebox. Get your kids doing it. Get the kids in your ministry doing it. Vladimir, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
All of my friends at Samaritan's Purse speak so highly of you, and now I know why. You're a great guy. Thank you. And you got a good sense of humor, too.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. And I do want to remind that National Collection Week is going on right now. It's the 16th through the 23rd. And you can go to SamaritansPurse.org/OCC and find nearest location closest to your house. We have over 4,000 locations across the country.
Good call.
You just put in your zip code and it'll pop up. And just I want to say a huge thank you to you for having me. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Vladimir, thank you. Kidman community, thanks for tuning in to today's coffee chat. Hey, if you've enjoyed this, share it with somebody. Ask them to listen in. And we will be back tomorrow at the same time. Hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks again, Vladimir.
Thank you. God bless.